In every age, from the marble courts of Athens to the glowing screens of our time, men have whispered the same question: why does she test me? It feels subtle at first, a remark, a delay, a glance that lingers just long enough to make you doubt. But beneath these small gestures lies a pattern as old as desire itself. Women, consciously or not, deploy a rule, a single, timeless mechanism that reveals not just who you are, but what you are. The ancients wrote of it in veiled language. Machiavelli hinted at it when he spoke of princes being proved by adversity. Marcus Aurelius saw it as nature's way of sorting the strong from the weak. And today, modern psychology has given it a name: compliance testing. In this video, we will walk through this hidden rule. You will see how it shows up in mythology, in history, in your daily life. You will learn why women do it, not out of cruelty, but out of instinct, and how the man who understands it earns both respect and attraction. By the end, you will not just pass the test, you will understand the deeper dance of power and vulnerability that runs beneath every relationship. This is not a trick, and it is not manipulation. It is a revelation. Let us begin.
You've been in this situation before, even if you didn't realize it. A woman asks a question that feels harmless but carries an invisible weight. She arrives late and watches how you react. She shares a small secret and waits to see if you can hold it. These moments are not random. They're deliberate. Hidden inside them is a rule, a single, quiet law of female psychology that determines whether she will see you as strong or as weak. Throughout history, from the courts of Cleopatra to the salons of Paris, women have used subtle tests to read the men around them. These tests aren't always malicious. Most are subconscious. They are ancient, intuitive mechanisms for identifying character, resilience, and authenticity. A woman who does not test you does not know you. Testing is how she learns whether your strength is genuine or an act. This is the rule you've felt but never named: compliance testing. It is the unseen measure of your boundaries, your self-respect, your capacity to lead without domination. It's not about passing or failing like an exam. It's about revealing your true center. If you bend at every slight push, the mask drops. If you stand immovable but not aggressive, the truth of your nature shines through. Think of history's great figures. Caesar, who charmed and then lost Cleopatra, was constantly measured by her subtle moves. Napoleon wrote long letters to Josephine, yet always sensed her small experiments with his devotion. Even the Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, warned that other people's behavior tests not just your patience, but your principles. When you first understand this, the world changes. Conversations stop being random. They become signals. A woman's small remark about your lateness, her joking tease, her request to change your plans at the last minute. These are not accidents. They are probes for your frame, your integrity, your emotional spine. And here's the paradox. The test itself isn't the problem. The real question is your response. Weakness fails not because it's morally wrong, but because it signals to her deepest instincts that you cannot be trusted to hold your ground when life gets harder. Strength passes not because it's domineering, but because it communicates calm leadership. In this video, we're going to uncover this rule in detail. You'll see the psychology behind it, a few powerful historical examples, and practical ways to respond without being cold or fake. By the end, you'll recognize compliance testing as clearly as a chessboard, and you'll know how to keep your dignity without losing connection.
If you want to see compliance testing at its most refined, you don't have to look at dating coaches or modern social media. You go back 2,000 years to a palace on the Nile. Cleopatra did not only win men with beauty, she measured them with patience. Every banquet, every whispered conversation with Caesar or Mark Antony was a stage for subtle experiments. She would delay a meeting to see if a general lost his temper. She would offer conflicting advice and observe who sought her approval and who quietly held their own counsel. She would give a small privilege, then take it away to see whether the man begged for its return or simply moved on with dignity. These weren't random mood swings, they were signals. She needed to know, could this man be a partner in power, or was he just another pawn in her court? A general who couldn't stay centered under these small pressures would crack under war, and Cleopatra understood that instinctively. Mark Antony is the clearest example. He was charismatic, brave, adored by his soldiers, but he was also impulsive and desperate to please. When Cleopatra would change plans last minute, Antony would rearrange his schedule immediately. When she tested his loyalty with small provocations, he'd rush to prove himself instead of calmly stating his position. Each small compliance eroded his authority, until, by the time Octavian moved against him, Antony was no longer a commander, but a supplicant. Notice something here. Cleopatra wasn't using whips or public humiliation. She used tiny, almost invisible moves. A pause, a silence, a question, a slight withdrawal of attention. That's all it took to expose the real structure of a man's character. Fast forward to today, and the pattern is the same. The situations look different. A text left unanswered, a playful tease about another man, a last-minute change of plans. But the underlying mechanism is identical. It's not about cruelty, it's about data. A woman tests because she wants to know, if everything goes wrong, is the man beside me an anchor or a feather in the wind? When you understand this, you stop seeing these moments as traps. You start seeing them as mirrors. Each test reflects back your own steadiness or fragility. You don't have to fight or perform. You simply have to stand in your values, like a tree in a shifting current. This is the first key to passing the one rule women use to test men. Don't see it as manipulation to fight against. See it as an opportunity to reveal who you truly are, because that is what she's truly looking for.
We often imagine tests only in romantic settings, but female psychology shows up anywhere power, trust, and cooperation intersect.
Think of a high-stakes corporate boardroom. The dynamics are quieter than Cleopatra's palace, but the same patterns play out, especially when a woman in a position of influence wants to see who can handle stress without crumbling. Picture a young executive presenting his project to a female CEO. She interrupts with an unexpected question that seems slightly off-topic. She changes the order of the agenda at the last moment. She brings up a potential conflict with another department that he hadn't anticipated. To him, it might feel like sabotage. In reality, she is watching how he reacts. Does he get defensive? Does he scramble, start talking faster, throwing jargon like smoke bombs? Or does he pause, breathe, clarify his points calmly, and hold his ground without arrogance? This is compliance testing in its purest, non-romantic form. It's not about gender war, it's about information. Leaders, male or female, test because they want to see your default setting under pressure. And just like Cleopatra, these tests are rarely labeled. They come as delays, difficult questions, contradictory instructions, or sudden silence. One vivid real-world story. A woman who runs a venture capital fund told me that in every pitch meeting, she changes one small but crucial condition at the last moment. If a founder immediately agrees and tries to please, she makes a mental note. If he politely asks for time to reconsider or counters with clear reasoning, she leans in. Not because I want to trip them up, she said, but because how they handle micro pressure tells me everything about how they'll handle macro pressure. This is the same principle women use in personal relationships, scaled to millions of dollars. The test is not whether you obey. The test is whether you maintain your frame. A steady man or woman communicates without a single word. I'm listening. I'm calm. I don't panic. I don't overcompensate. And I don't surrender my judgment just to please you. That posture is magnetic. It signals competence and self-respect. It's the difference between someone who is chosen as a partner in power and someone who becomes a disposable tool. In both love and work, the one rule women use to test men is less about the details of the test and more about your response to it. A last-minute change of plans, a difficult question, a subtle withdrawal of attention. These are just ways to open a window into your inner world. If your center is solid, the test becomes an introduction rather than an obstacle.
Most of the time, these tests are not happening in palaces or boardrooms. They're happening quietly in coffee shops, text messages, first dates, and team meetings. This is where the principle becomes invisible and therefore most powerful. Imagine a man on a first date. The conversation is warm and easy until halfway through she mentions an opinion that sharply contradicts his. Maybe it's about politics, religion, or a hobby he values. It's not meant as an attack, it's a soft probe. She wants to see whether he can disagree without collapsing or fighting. Does he instantly change his opinion to match hers? Does he become combative and try to win the point? Or does he smile, hold his view with calm confidence, and still listen to her perspective? That moment tells her more than his resume ever could. It shows whether he has a center, whether his self-worth depends on external approval, and whether he can respect a difference without losing attraction. This is the everyday version of Cleopatra's banquet or the CEO's pitch meeting. Another common modern test happens over text or social media. A woman who is interested might delay her reply on purpose or become a little cooler after a strong interaction. This isn't always manipulation. Often it's a subconscious way to measure your emotional regulation. If you panic, send a stream of needy messages, or accuse her of playing games, you've just revealed that your mood rests entirely on her attention. If you stay steady, keep your life moving, and respond warmly but without chasing, you show that your sense of self is larger than a single interaction. That steadiness is rare and magnetic. The application of this principle is simple but not easy. Notice your own nervous system before you react. Breathe. Slow down. Ask yourself, what is being tested here? What story am I telling with my reaction? You can even practice small doses of pressure intentionally, delaying your own responses, putting yourself in uncomfortable conversations, practicing saying no politely, so that when real tests come, you've already built the muscle. When you respond from calm presence rather than reactive compliance, two things happen. First, you pass the test by showing you're not a reed bending with every gust. Second, the test often dissolves into genuine respect, deeper conversation, or a stronger connection. Whether in dating, friendship, or business, you become someone who can be trusted with more responsibility and intimacy because you've shown that your boundaries are real and your composure isn't a mask. In the ancient world, philosophers called this autorexia, an unshakable tranquility that makes influence flow toward you instead of away. In today's world, it's the hidden currency of leadership, attraction, and trust.
You now see the hidden rule. A woman tests a man not to destroy him, but to reveal him. The test is older than any culture, older than any language. It is nature's way of asking a single question: are you solid ground? Most men mistake the test for rejection. They react, plead, or resent. In doing so, they prove themselves unstable. The rare man thanks the test. He breathes, stays rooted, and responds from principle rather than panic. This does not guarantee romantic success, but it guarantees self-respect. And paradoxically, self-respect is what draws genuine respect from others. So the next time you feel challenged by a remark, a delay, a withdrawal of affection, remember the ancient dance. Do not take it personally. Take it as your cue to stand firm, to act from your center, to embody steadiness. In the words of Marcus Aurelius, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Pass the test, not by force, but by presence. That is the true mark of a man.